Hello. So today's video, it's on the power of your mind and how do you even know or monitor your thoughts or your mind? How do you know if your mind is serving you or working against you? I think, it's really common for someone to not even notice or pay attention to their own thoughts and how their thoughts go. And because of that, we often are thinking negatively or thinking worst case scenario, belittling ourselves or limiting ourselves without even realizing it. So I was doing this meditation today, and that's where this message came through. I'm having trouble retrieving how it happened, but what I know is right now, what I meant to talk to you about is your mind. How are you programming yourself on a daily basis? Do you think in positive terms? Do you think in possibilities? Or do you think in what you don't want to have happen and in limitation? So the power of the mind, first I need to go into that. It's so powerful, and what's amazing is what we create in our brains. Our body and our cells do not know the difference of that thought or imagined scenario being real or being made up. There's no difference. Once it's in your mind, it might as well be real. And let me give you an example. This is the example I use with all my clients, and it makes the most sense to me. That's why I use it. So you can just go back in your memory. You can close your eyes or keep them open. It doesn't matter. Just as long as you're feeling comfortable and it feels safe and you are doing safe things. I don't want you to be listening to this while you're driving and then close your eyes, obviously. But do what feels right, what feels safe for you. And you can close your eyes and just imagine one of the best memories, the happiest times that comes to your mind right now. Whatever it is, it can be the smallest thing. It can be from when you were tiny, young child, or it can be just yesterday. It doesn't matter what it is, but this memory feels like one of the best memories where you're laughing or you feel so filled up inside. You feel love, you feel peace, you feel joy, you feel happiness. You could be hysterically laughing or just feeling deep gratitude within and being silent. Whatever that memory is, bring it back to your focus now. And when you have that memory and you start to really pay attention to the details, like how did it feel to have those sensations? How happy were you? How exciting was the thing that just happened? How good was it? And what were the other people doing around you that made it so great? Or what were you doing in that moment that made it so great? Or what was happening in that moment that made it so amazing? And just really feel that. Like bring it all back to the current time in your mind's eye. It's happening right now again. And you might notice that you feel pretty good just by remembering it, just by bringing it back to your awareness. Well, the same is going to happen, but on a different spectrum. So now erase that memory, get rid of it, and we're going to do a new memory now. So forget that one, that good, happy feeling memory that really leaves you feeling great, but forget about it for now. And now I want you to go back into a new memory, a new time. And this is a time when something tragic happened, something terrible, something so sad and hard. It was one of the worst days of your life. Now, this might get a bit heavy, so it doesn't have to be the worst day, but it could definitely be a day that wasn't good. Maybe there's some bad news. Maybe you just felt down. But whatever it is, bring it back. I won't spend as much time here, I promise. It's just a memory, but you're bringing it back. And as you bring it back, you notice that you don't feel as good as you did before when we brought up the great memory. Sometimes when we go deep enough into those negative memories or those hard memories or those sad ones, we begin to cry. And it's like it's happening again. But what's fascinating is neither of those moments happened again. They only happened once, and you brought them back to your mind. Your mind relived them. Your mind created them once again. And then the emotions that you felt just now were real. You might have felt happiness again. You might have felt excitement, love, and gratitude and joy. You might have laughed or giggled or smiled, and your body felt lighter. It's like you kind of lifted up with that first memory. But then when we did the second memory, did you feel heavy? Did you feel darkness? Did you feel sadness in your heart? Maybe your breathing got shallow. So this exercise is just to show you that your mind does not know the difference between imagination and reality, because you just thought it, and then the emotions and your physiology, your physical body changed just because of the thing in your mind's eye. That's how powerful the mind is. We can create scenarios, or we can retrieve scenarios from the past, and our brain doesn't know the difference, and so we'll respond as if it's happening right now in real time. You might cry just remembering an old incident, but it's not happening now. But it feels like it is, so you cry. You relive it. But the same thing goes for how you think about the future. If you think about the future in terms of lightness, happiness, possibilities, joy, gratitude, peace, love, compassion, enthusiasm, all of those high vibration emotions can be placed in your mind's eye, and you will live differently and choose differently because you've put yourself there as if it's really happening. But the same goes for the hard, sad, dark, negative, tragic, fearful, regretful imagination. If you think in terms of those darker, heavier emotions for the future, you respond in the current moment as if it's happening. And these two different perspectives will greatly change your reality in the moment now. How you think, how you project yourself in your mind's eye, how you see yourself in your mind's eye will change what's happening on a day-to-day basis, because like I've said, your brain does not understand the difference between real versus imagined. So then how do we condition our minds to be on the side of light, positive, uplifting, happy? How do we get our minds to serve us versus tear us down? I think the first way is to recognize where your thoughts go on a daily basis, what's natural, what happens more of the time. And I think the best way for me has been to have awareness. So first of all, you have to have awareness to know what is your brain doing. It's pretty crazy to think that you as an observer of yourself can see your own thoughts. That means there's a higher dimension to you. You are not your thoughts. If you're able to take a bird's eye view, and I love using that term, I've noticed, bird's eye view. If you're able to take a bird's eye view and see how your thoughts go, that means that you are not your thoughts. You're the observer. Well, who's the observer? The observer is the version of you that gets to choose. It's the higher vibration you who has a choice in how your life is going to play out and how you're going to respond, how you're going to think. And you have the awareness to see how I'm thinking isn't serving me, or it's not going to lead me to the life I want to live. So I get to change that in steps or in habits and routines. So the observer is kind of like the queen or king of your kingdom or queendom. It's like this meta version of you. But anyways, so you want to be aware of your thoughts. How do you see yourself in your mind's eye? This is a language that I learned from Maxwell Maltz in his course Psycho-Cybernetics and his book. I did a workbook that was about 6 months long, I think, way back in probably 2016. And anyways, you can check him out, Maxwell Maltz, M-A-L-T-Z. But basically what I'm saying right now is, how do you envision yourself? When you think of the future, or you think of yourself right now, how do you see yourself? The awareness of that is huge, because sometimes we will see ourselves in a way that shrinks our esteem, our self-esteem. We might see ourselves as ugly or frail or shy or limited, or have our imagination of ourselves, how we see ourselves in our mind's eye, might be filled with dark, heavy colors as opposed to brightness or happiness or empowering colors. You want to be aware of how you see yourself in your mind's eye, because that is key to creating the life you want to create, empowering yourself, and beginning to change that view of yourself so that you can be more aligned with the things that are empowering to you. So when I was starting out on this kind of work, being more aware of my thoughts, kind of more in the cognitive behavioral realm, I was getting into growth mindset, mental toughness, that kind of thing. I kind of worked in that order, by the way, like just to share a little bit of myself. I first became aware of my thoughts, my cognition, and how to change those things. Then later on, I began more emotional work and doing deeper levels of healing. I truly believe that to be an empowered individual and to really heal wounds from the past, we have to work on multiple levels. We have to do multi-layered work. Mental, physical, emotional. These are all intertwined, but we might start at one that's a little more accessible than the others. And I find that a lot of people believe that the psychological work is easier than the emotional work. And it's not to say they don't cross over. It's not like a clear line. But that's why cognitive behavioral psychology and cognitive behavioral therapy is so, like prevalent and popular in our culture, because it's, I believe, a little more accessible than going deeper into the childhood stuff or the emotional stuff, and then kind of releasing trauma in the body. That might be a little bit more intense. This is why people like Tony Robbins are so popular. He's amazing. He's amazing, and he does work on multi-levels, but he is more in the psychological realm, more on the mental work side of things than the emotional side of things. Not to say they don't blend, because they do, but all I'm saying is this is a very important step. If you are interested in your own growth and your own healing and your own empowerment, the step of being aware of where do your thoughts go on a regular basis. What's normal for you? What do you think of when someone says something, or when, there's just so many examples I could think of. I would just say, be aware of your thoughts. I have to keep it simple. The second thing is be aware of how you see yourself in your mind's eye. This is an important step for your own self-growth, self-awareness, healing, and empowerment. How you see yourself in your mind's eye is about literally how do you picture yourself when you think of yourself, or you think of the future and you doing something. What do you look like? What does it feel like? Maxwell Maltz says something like, don't let your self-image shrink to the size of a small potato. And when I was doing this exercise in my own work, I had a small potato on my desk because it was a daily practice for me to not belittle myself, to not make myself small. And to be honest, I still work on this. I'm still working on this in another level. It's been kind of a lifelong, process for me, because I still notice how I make myself small. Maybe not in the ways I used to, maybe not as much, but I still do it, and it's still something I work on daily. So anyways, not letting your self-image shrink to the size of a small potato means don't make yourself small. Don't make yourself weak and small and pathetic and pitiful and helpless and fear-ridden and limited. When you think of yourself, you want to have imagination of yourself being the best version of you in your mind's eye. Why not? Why not? But sometimes people see themselves as, like, first of all, physically, they might see themselves as, like, they might play up a physical feature that makes them unconscious, and in their mind, it's even bigger than it is. So another Maxwell Maltz example is, he worked with a lot of people who had physical issues, maybe really big ears that stuck out, and it made them feel very unconscious. And he got into this line of work because he was a plastic surgeon. This is way back in the day, I think maybe in the 40s, I could be wrong about when, but so he would go and do this reconstruction on faces that were like had like something at birth, a birth defect, or a traumatic incident left a scar on their face, or things like that. Really like unusual cases, or out of the ordinary, not just like I want to, like how everyone gets facial stuff done today just because they want to look better, and we have this like weird perception of what is better. It's like not being yourself. Anyways, that's a whole other topic. So he'd go in and he'd do this reconstructive surgery, and then he noticed that people often felt exactly the same, and they thought that that issue would resolve their low self-esteem, but it didn't. And that's when he realized it's because the way they saw themselves in their mind's eye did not change. They still saw themselves as the little person who everyone made fun of in school for having the extra big hook nose or whatever. So the way we see ourselves matters more than how we actually look. The way we see ourselves matters more than what we actually do. We have to align how we see ourselves with where we want to go and how we want to feel. So if you are constantly picturing yourself in a small way that diminishes your power and diminishes you in some way, then your mind is working against you. But your mind is that powerful that it can change. So I recommend, if this is you, if you know you need work in this area, like probably all of us do, the first thing you can do is be aware and then shift it. How you shift it is you take the best memories that you have, the best moments of your life, the times when you felt the most confident. And if you don't have any examples to pull from, if you're like, I've never felt confident in my life and I don't have any good memories, if that's you, make them up or steal them from other people. So you might have someone in your mind who you think has the life you want to have or has the experiences you want to experience. and imagine what it feels like to be in their shoes. And as you imagine it, you get better at creating that mental movie for yourself. But it has to be done with patience and in small steps. So like you might start small, like at night before you go to bed. I think I've talked about this before. This is how I did it. Before I went to bed, I would try to picture a good outcome of something in my life. And I had a really hard time doing this because I was very much ridden in fear, and I was kind of in a trauma. I had been in trauma for a long time, and almost like just picturing things not going well was my norm. And so to reverse that, I took a couple minutes before I went to bed at night to imagine something good, to imagine myself being confident and happy and holding myself in the way I wanted to, I wish I could, or I saw other people doing it and I wanted to be able to do it. So I would play make-believe essentially in my mind. And it was extremely difficult. Most of the time I wasn't able to create a very vivid mental movie. I was trying and it was like fuzzy, or I couldn't really picture it, or I'd fall asleep because it was so hard and I just got exhausted in my mind, and my brain would exhaust itself trying to think. It's really that we're building new neural pathways. If your brain is used to firing in a certain way, in a certain pattern, it can be a lot of work to rewire your brain to do something different, to think in different ways. So it is work. It's not like it's going to happen overnight. That's why you have to do it in little incremental baby steps every day in some way. And over time it gets easier, just the way building a muscle gets easier. You might start with 5-pound weights if you're doing presses and you've never done presses before. And that might happen for a few weeks and you might be really sore and you're not sure if you want to continue, but you continue, and then you move to 10-pound weights or 7-pound weights, and you incrementally move up in weights, and you change the volume of the workouts, and finally you begin to see shoulder muscle development. And you think back to the day when you could barely do the 5-pound weights, and it seems like so long ago. And the saying is, once impossible, now easy. So for anything that you've ever had in your life that was hard, and then it became easy, you want to remember that once impossible, now easy is possible in another area. And this is the area of training your mental movies, training the self-image side of you, training your mind to think in positive terms and to be empowered. So all of this is possible, and one day it will be easy, but right now it might feel impossible, and that's okay, because there's other times, there's other things in your life that were once impossible and now they're easy. So you can see, I've been able to do it with that thing, and now I'm here, I can do it with this thing, and I'll go there. That's also from Maxwell Maltz, once impossible, now easy. So, okay, good one. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.